fight for the citizens of the District of Columbia, fight scams, fight predatory lending, fight pollution. I want to fight for you. So I ask for your vote because we deserve an Attorney General who knows what to do and knows how to do it. Thank you.
Latifah Williams, the current Attorney General, who was not elected, has opposed on legal grounds a number of initiatives to expand home rule, such as the council bill just referred to on budget autonomy. Do you agree with this? And if not, how would you deal with these substantive issues of budget autonomy and their legality?
Well, first of all, I don't agree with it. I think when the voters decided to pass the voter initiative for budget autonomy, that the job of the Attorney General was to fight to uphold the will of the voters. So the fact that the statehood decision went to court and we had an Attorney General arguing against the will of the voters and against the DC Council, I don't think that's the way to go. As far as pursuing budget autonomy, I think we need to have a multifaceted approach. I think one, court cases that are in court, if there's the opportunity to use, to have the right court case, I think that it needs to be pursued. But I also think we need to work with our federal partners. We need to work with our congresswomen, as well as to lobby Congress to give the district more autonomy. And I think that budget autonomy, as well as other steps toward statehood in the interim, can be very effective as far as slowly gaining some of the rights that we should have. Well, we should have the rights of all states in this country.
Edward Smith, the legal grounds for the budget autonomy of the District of Columbia.
So I disagree with the Attorney General's decision not to defend the Budget Autonomy Act strongly. I believe that indeed the Attorney General, in upholding the public interest, being a legal guardian of the public interest, has to fight on behalf of the people of the District of Columbia as their attorney in making sure that we have as much autonomy as possible, and I believe that the Budget Autonomy Act is consistent with that. What you will find with the Budget Autonomy Act, the main concern that the Attorney General referenced was that it was not within the authority of the District of Columbia, absent congressional action, to alter the district's relationship with Congress vis-a-vis the budget. The 1973 Home Rule Act generally grants the District of Columbia the authority to amend the Home Rule Act, amend the DC Charter by referendum. And the only question is if there is an exemption with respect to the budget provisions. I think that there is a reading as far as the legislative history that demonstrates that indeed it is within the power, as granted by Congress already, to amend those sections.
Lori Masters.
Well, I am the one person on this panel that's actually fought for this Budget Autonomy Act. As I said in my opening, I filed 2 briefs in support of the Budget Autonomy Act that amended our Home Rule Charter, and I filed those in May and July of 2014. So this is how I look at it. As one of the giants in DC said once, Charles Hamilton Houston, a lawyer is either a social engineer or a parasite on society. My view is this, that if everyone agrees that budget autonomy is in the best interest of the District of Columbia, everyone involved in this situation, from the Attorney General's office to the judge who decided this decision, and if that's the case, and consistent with what Charles Hamilton Houston said, I think it's the obligation of an elected Attorney General who serves the people of the district to enforce and work to make sure that budget autonomy is something that we have and we can spend our local tax dollars the way we want to do it.
Carver Steve.
Yes, sir. This is where I disagree with my colleagues. It would be really easy for me to say I'm in favor of, or I disagree with the Attorney General Irv Nathan on his position with respect to budget autonomy. That would be really popular. It would be what everybody wants to hear. I think that in that instance, Irv Nathan, and more importantly, Judge Emmett Sullivan got it right. The council's legislation regarding budget autonomy was poorly written, not effective, and destined to lose. I don't think it makes any sense for us who are seeking democracy, statehood and budget autonomy to throw up half-cocked legal theories and hope and pray they win. That's not the way that Charles Hamilton Houston led the civil rights struggle that led to integration. There was strategy, there was careful thought, and there was indeed, as Ms. Williams said, a multifaceted approach. I will work with every right lawyer in town to develop the right strategy to win autonomy.
Ms. Lori Masters, would you please talk about what you have done specifically to make the Attorney General position an elected position rather than an appointed position as it is now?
Thank you for that. Yes, I've been involved for more than 10 years, as I said, on DC autonomy, statehood, self-determination issues. And as part of that work, in my role on the board of DC Appleseed, I was involved in these issues and worked to come up with a strategy that led to the referendum that created this as an elected position. When the council voted to put this off, I was part of a committee that recommended that we help Paul Zuckerberg, one of the candidates here for Attorney General, find pro bono counsel to represent him in the litigation and ultimately put this on the ballot. So I've been very involved with that issue. I've also been very involved with budget autonomy. And I worked on that for more than 4 years, and I disagree with my respected colleague here, Mr. Racine. That was a product of careful thought by a lot of really smart lawyers in this city.
Edward Smith, what have you done to make the Attorney General's position an elected position?
Generations before me who have not had access to full franchise as DC citizens. So something that I fought for a long time, both through DC Code and the Meeting People Project, specifically with respect to the Attorney General's election. After the council acted to delay the election, I went directly to the Wilson building, and I walked the halls, and I talked to the staff, and I tried to talk to the council members, though they did not have the time to see me. And then I went and I testified before the Committee of the Whole for Chairman Mendelson, and protested the council's decision to delay the election and advocated on behalf of a bill that was then being presented by Councilmember Che to put the election back on the ballot in November. And that is online. You can go look it up and watch my testimony. That's actually where I met Lori. And so it's something that I've been fighting for, and it's something that I'm proud to have fought for.
Mr. Racine, you're audience member raised it, and your discussion of this autonomy legislation might seem to conflict with the notion of DC autonomy, DC statehood. The audience member said that you have given contradictory answers regarding your support for DC statehood. We'll begin with you, but then we'll ask all of the panelists about the issue of statehood and how that relates to the chief law enforcement officer of the district.
With respect to the audience member who I assume is operating, of course, in good faith, let me be clear. I am 100% in favor of statehood. I am 100% in favor of budget autonomy. I may disagree with how we get there. I may disagree with the idea of being automatically called an advocate of budget autonomy just because you have an idea, whether or not the idea has any merit or not. I want, again, to develop strategies that actually win. That's what I'm about, winning. In terms of being the chief legal officer of this city, it's a big job. Over 300 lawyers, over 650 employees, a $100 million budget. You need a leader who has management experience, bringing lawyers together to actually get the job done for their clients. Here, the client is the citizens of the District of Columbia, and I have the experience to achieve that objective of providing great service to our citizens.
David Smith, your thoughts on statehood and the Attorney General of the District of Columbia.
So I've been a vocal advocate for representation and statehood for a long time. It's an essential part of obtaining what we need to obtain to be full citizens in this democracy. And it is shameful that as the capital of the greatest democracy on the planet, an example for the world, we don't have representation in our most powerful legislative body. And so I believe that the Attorney General needs to be a vocal and powerful advocate for that. And that means taking on something that we all recognize is very difficult. If it were easy, it would have been done already. However, I have great experience doing that in government and leading and taking on some of the toughest issues, things that people said couldn't be done in the amount of time that needed to be done in. And so I believe that I would bring that same skill set, and that same ability to overcome what seems to be an unconquerable obstacle to my job as Attorney General. And I would put together a task force of lawyers, the best ones in the office and those from outside the office, to examine that issue and figure out the best legal approaches to it.
Time. Latifah Williams, Statehood for the District of Columbia and the Attorney General's Office.
Yes, well, first of all, as Attorney General, it would give me a great platform to use as a bully pulpit to advocate for statehood. So I would do that on many levels. First of all, there still needs to be public education and public engagement. While there are many people here in the district who care about statehood, people don't necessarily see it visibly. And I think that's something that Congress needs to see before they act. I think my background, my legislative background, particularly with everything from drafting legislation to lobbying, will be very effective, because I think lobbying Congress is a huge part of what will be an effective strategy. And having the Attorney General's office serve as another elected official working on behalf of that issue is also important. And finally, I'll also work with advocacy groups. So some will be advocacy groups who are going to deal lobbying. Others will be advocacy groups who are putting together cases to argue. So I will be willing to meet with these groups to achieve statehood.
I'm asked to Statehood for the Attorney General.
I've fought on these issues for 10 years because I'm sick and tired of being a second-class citizen in my own country. So I vow to you, if I'm Attorney General, I will move heaven and earth to work on this issue. One thing that I've talked about is I want to use my national platform through the American Bar Association, my activities in the American Bar Association, and also platform as our Attorney General to go to the National Association of Attorneys General and argue and lobby other top legal officers throughout the country to support our effort to get both statehood and greater political autonomy generally. So I've been told by other state attorneys general that the district is absent from these national associations. And I want to use my work in those associations to lobby for statehood. And I will work with Eleanor Holmes Norton, with whom I've met on these issues over the last 10 years in our fight to get voting rights and statehood to craft an additional strategy for going forward.
Mr. Edwards and Mrs. Smith, I made an observation earlier that via Article 4 of the Constitution states that Congress and the signature of the President can admit states to the Union. There's an argument that came up during the statehood hearings in the Senate by the ranking member whose name I cannot recall, and I apologize to him. But he raised an interesting point, which was, well, if the District of Columbia became a state, there would need to be a constitutional amendment to do away with the 23rd Amendment, which gives DC electors for the president. Is there a contradiction between, and this is for everyone, is there a contradiction between the congressional group for statehood, that is Congress, the majority in the House and Senate, and the signature of the President makes it the state, or is there a need for some constitutional group, and would that be preferable?
So we've tried the constitutional amendment route, and it died on the vine. I believe that we have the congressional route, and that the congressional route is viable. The senator you're speaking about, I believe, was Tom Coburn, and his point notwithstanding, the fact that there would need to be a repeal of the 23rd Amendment in order to avoid some sort of double granting of electors is not a barrier to our ability to move forward on the law. We certainly could not, hoping for subsequent action, see an amendment to repeal the 23rd and then leave ourselves exposed in that manner. So I believe it would require a dual path approach. So to answer that, I recognize the difficulty, but I believe that it will be done.
Honorary Masters, constitutional approach, or 51 votes in the House, 51 votes in the Senate, 217 in the House, and the signature of the United States President.
Well, it's clearly in the Constitution that this is a way to go in terms of achieving statehood, and I would favor that if we can get this through the legislative process. So, of course, the devil's always been in the details here, but at the statehood hearing that was held on Capitol Hill, we had constitutional law professors who supported the district's effort, just like other states. Most recently in my lifetime, Hawaii and Alaska, of course, became part of the union. So that whole process is done through a process of figuring out all of the complicated issues that might arise when a jurisdiction becomes a state. This is no different than that. So if there has to be some kind of an amendment to repeal, in effect, the 23rd Amendment to make sure that we're not getting more electors or different processes here for presidential elections, that can be done. And I don't see that that's any impediment to us getting statehood.
Yeah, I think my colleagues have it right here. I think the real question is who is the Attorney General who's going to be most effective in bringing home statehood. And I would suggest to you that with respect to the bar, the courts, the community of business, and indeed lawyers nationwide, that lawyer who has the greatest stature, modestly speaking, is me. It's the attorney who was the only African-American managing partner in an Am Law 100 firm, the only attorney here who was invited by the Democratic Association of Attorney General to attend their national conference just last week. I have the relationships, I have the stature, I have the persuasive ability to bring new force to our arguments before the Hill that will assist us in bringing statehood.
Lateefah Williams.
Well, first of all, I agree with everyone on the stage that the congressional route is the way to go. And I happen to think that my grassroots background gives me a leg up on how to actually achieve it. One of the things, the district we have college students who come to the district to study from all over. So one of the things that we need to do a better job of is educating all of these out-of-state college students about our plight for statehood. Because while we may not have votes in Congress, they all come from states who have votes for Congress. And so if people from those states are then pressuring their representatives and their senators as constituents, that's when they will start to listen. So I think what we need is a grassroots movement across the country. And we can start with many of these college students, and then many, when they graduate, they will go back to their communities, and then they can push it in their communities. And I think that's the best way to get Congress to really listen and to pass statehood.
Stand up for DC, stand up. People of the world, rise up. Stand up for your rights. Stand up for DC, stand up. Stand up for DC. Stand up for DC, stand up. Stand up for DC, stand up. People of the world, rise up. Stand up for your rights. Stand up for DC, stand up. Stand up for DC, stand up. People of the world, rise up. Stand up for your rights.
Also, she got a big pat on the back from David Schwarzman, so please introduce yourself.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you, David, for the compliment. That was an exciting day for anyone who cares about DC statehood to have our first hearing. I was honored to be a part of it. I want to acknowledge my colleague Michael Brown, who's here in the audience, and give him a hand. He did a tremendous job. out there. And
Everybody walking this side. Welcome again. No.
it was a terrific day for our movement. We had a chairman, Senate Chairman Tom Carper, that held a hearing on our belt. We had testimony from a wide spectrum of ideological backgrounds, most of it overwhelmingly in support of our bill. We had people who served in conservatives, like Gay did, who served in the Justice Department under conservative Republican presidents who agreed the statehood was fully constitutional. And one person who didn't agree with us had weak arguments that were easily rebutted by the members of our panel. So this was a record that we made, and a movement and a moment that we can build on. And I am grateful for the people of DC for allowing me the privilege of representing them in that body. And because we've achieved that momentum, and because we've made progress, I want to finish the work that we've started. I want to build on the progress that we've made, and I hope to be able to continue serving the people of the District of Columbia as the United States Senator until we get to the point where we are equally represented in that body and the House of Representatives. I look forward to engaging in a spirited discussion tonight. I thank my opponent, David. He mentioned Ms. Richmond, who's not here. And we also have a Libertarian running, John Daniel, who has been running at least a positive issues-oriented campaign, which wasn't necessarily how we began this cycle, but I'm pleased that we can use this campaign as an opportunity to really advance the issue of statehood. Thank you.
And do you believe, Strauss, that the sole responsibility of your office, your position, is to lobby Congress for statehood as in the, I guess, what's the Tennessee model, or do you have other duties, and what might those other duties be?
I certainly believe that the most important obligation you have as the District of Columbia Senator is to advance the issue of DC statehood in the Senate. But I certainly don't take the position that it's my only duty. In fact, there have been many significant opportunities where, as DC's elected representative to the Senate, we have had to advance the district's interests on a variety of other issues, which has been helpful. Some of them are because of our lack of home rule. Right now, for example, there are 2 DC judges who have no business being before the Senate, but whose nominations are tied up, who aren't on the job serving the people where they should be. It's been one of my practices to try and assist those nominees from the District of Columbia, like a home state senator would, when they go before the Senate. And there have been other issues as well. We actually had to fight to get DC included in the Farm Bill so that the University of the District of Columbia can get its fair share of spending and resources out of our federal budget. There have been other examples, but I want to respect the time.
Strauss, what 3 things would you do in your first year to get more DC residents involved in the statehood movement?
That's direct that to him, and you said that.
I said Paul Strauss, and I looked at you.
Okay.
So
what? Okay.
Let's go with guys.
He's looking at me, so I thought
Let's go with guys. I apologize. You both got these.
It's gaslighting. What 3 things would I do? Well, we need to organize locally, nationally, and internationally. Locally, I would work to empower the statehood movement by actually being a champion of measures that would improve the life of the people and therefore empower them to be able to more actively engage in statehood. For instance, a living wage, $15 an hour. A DC public bank that would take our revenue instead of Wall Street holding it and partner with local banks. We should, in addition, raising the tax rate of the top 1%, $3 billion average income that pay a lower rate than virtually everyone else. We need funding for our low-income program, which are underfunded. Nationally, I would work to organize Americans for Statehood in every state, and I'll get to the international part.
Strauss, I'm looking at you, I said the name correctly. You've been on the job. If re-elected, are there new priorities which you feel energized to do more? What 3 things would you do to get more people in the district involved in the state of the Union?
Well, I think getting people in the district involved in the state of New York is important. A lot of my priorities have been trying to get attention for our cause outside of the District of Columbia. One of the efforts I'm most proud of is our 51 Stars initiative, where we're actually going around and recruiting Hollywood-style celebrities and people from the entertainment and sports industry to appear in public service announcements that have been airing on cable networks around the country, promoting the issue of DC Stadium. Certainly, there's a lot more we need to do to get the people of the District of Columbia involved. The people in the District of Columbia I'd really like to see more involved in our stated effort are the 13 members of our Council of the District of Columbia, because we need to get them supporting our efforts with a real budget, real financial resources, so that we're not running just an all-volunteer operation, but we can begin to use the resources that this office was actually meant to have when it was first created.
Here's a question from someone, certainly not a Paul Strauss partisan, who points out that the Democratic Party dropped statehood from its platform. And in recent hearings on Capitol Hill in the Senate, for which many are proud, the president made no top officials available. And the question is, you seem to be not able to muster the support of Democrats.
I do think that it's time for the entire delegation to be working together. Franklin Garcia is here. He's going to be possibly joining us as our shadow representative. And I think we've had a good relationship. Delegate Norton, Senator Brown, myself.
Strauss, civil disobedience, is that a tool? And would you advocate civil disobedience to advance the cause of statehood of the District of Columbia?
Absolutely. First of all, I've committed civil disobedience at various points as part of various movements, and as an attorney, I was privileged to represent practitioners of civil disobedience in trials for people who have been arrested engaging in DC statehood protests. So I think it absolutely plays a role. It's something we need more of it. I remember April 11th, a few years ago, when the mayor and many of our elected officials got arrested. I represented people who got arrested a few days later on April 15th. And I will continue to represent them as their senator. And if they need some help as a lawyer, I look forward to helping them that way.
If you swear to civil disobedience.
Well, of course.